शतरल रेडियो के सभी श्रोताओं को प्रज्ञा मिश्र का प्यार भरा नमस्कार। श्रोताओं, दर्शकों, आज शतरल रेडियो के एपिसोड में हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं आशीष लिमये जी। आप क्रेविंग डिजिटल नामक कंपनी के सीईओ हैं, जिसका मूल उद्देश्य मार्केटिंग, एडवर्टाइजिंग और कंटेंट क्रिएशन है। तकनीक के इस दौर में ये बहुत ही ज़रूरी हो जाता है कि हम प्रासंगिक रहें, और इसलिए शतरल रेडियो पर आज हम बात करने जा रहे हैं क्रेविंग डिजिटल के सीईओ, एडवर्टाइजिंग प्रोफेशनल आशीष लिमये जी से। आप एक पर्वतारोही भी हैं, ट्रैवल ब्लॉगर भी हैं, जिसने आपको देश भर में बहुत सारे इंस्टीट्यूट से ख्याति भी दिलवाई है। और ये हमारा सौभाग्य है कि आज शतरल रेडियो के मंच पर आपसे बातचीत का जो ये सफर है, बहुत लोगों के लिए अनुभव समाहित रखेगा और बहुत सारी जानकारी इसके माध्यम से छात्रों को और विभिन्न प्रोफेशनल्स को यहाँ से हम दिला पाएंगे। तो मैं स्वागत करती हूँ हमारे आज के अतिथि आशीष लिमये जी का। उन्हें माइक हैंडओवर करने से पहले उनके बारे में चंद बातें जो मैं आपको बता दूं। ये सारी जानकारी तो वैसे आप उनके वेबसाइट से ऑलरेडी हासिल कर सकते हैं, ashishlimaye.in से। पर यहाँ सभी के लिए यहाँ पर मौजूदा मैं बताऊं कि आप एक साइंस फील्ड के विद्यार्थी रहे हैं अपने स्कूली दिनों में, और आपका एजुकेशन मैथमेटिक्स और फिजिक्स मेजर में है। आपका जो अनुभव है वो डाइवर्सली एक्यूमुलेटेड है बहुत सारे सेक्टर्स में, जिसमें आपका अनुभव टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया, indiainfo.com, जे वॉल्टर थॉमसन, ओएच एडवर्टाइजिंग, इन सारी कंपनीज में अनुभव प्राप्त करके, इसके साथ ही आपका इंटीग्रेटेड मार्केटिंग का जो अनुभव है स्टार कॉम से आपको प्राप्त हुआ है, जहां पर आपने बेहतरीन लीडरशिप स्किल्स अपनी शोकेस की। एक बहुत ही बेहतरीन डायनामिक एनवायरनमेंट में अपने आप को आपने वहां पर साबित किया। आपकी जो एंटरप्रेन्योरियल जर्नी है वो उसका जो पूरा हम देखते हैं आपकी यात्रा में, वो हैप्पी फिनिश नामक कंपनी में आपके एसोसिएशन के साथ हम देखते हैं। उसके बाद हम देखते हैं, जिसके बारे में आज हम आपसे चर्चा करेंगे, बातें करेंगे। आगे बढ़ते हुए मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ कि आशीष लिमये जी रेगुलरली मैनेजमेंट स्कूल्स विजिट करते रहते हैं एज अ फैकल्टी। आप फोटोग्राफी बहुत एंजॉय करते हैं, साइकिलिंग, ब्लॉगिंग। ही इज ऑल्सो स्पीकर एट वेरियस एंगेजमेंट around topic involving media, communication and politics. Ashish is also winner of many awards of journalism and travelogues in India. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। तो इस तरह मैं बातचीत का सिलसिला आगे बढ़ाते हुए एडवेंचर पे भी आएंगे, हम उनके सारे आयामों पे आज बातचीत करेंगे। बातचीत का सिलसिला आगे बढ़ाते हुए मैं यहाँ पे माइक हैंडओवर करती हूँ आशीष को। बहुत बहुत स्वागत आशीष।
नमस्कार प्रज्ञा जी, थैंक यू, धन्यवाद फॉर कॉलिंग मी टू दिस पर्टिकुलर टॉक। जैसे आपने कहा, आई वुड प्रेफर टू स्पीक बिटवीन इंग्लिश, हिंदी एंड समटाइम्स आई मे यूज मराठी आल्सो. आई होप योर ऑडियंस आर ओके विद दैट.
Yes.
सो थैंक यू फॉर फाइंडिंग टाइम एंड बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, अप्रिशिएट दैट. आपको एक शख्सियत में कुछ इंटरेस्ट आया और आपको ऐसा लगा कि आई एम वर्दी ऑफ हैविंग सम कन्वर्सेशंस विद योर ऑडियंस. बट महत्वपूर्ण बात यह है कि जैसे जनरली अ बोट लीव्स द शोर एंड देन एंटर्स इनटू द ओशन. एक इंटरेस्टिंग एनालॉजी है कि इस टॉक शो पे पहले अदिति आई थी और उसके बाद में मैं आया हूँ. तो एक हिंदू माइथोलॉजी में एक सेइंग है कि इफ लक्ष्मी इज द शोर, विष्णु इज द ओशन. So I think so this is a interesting journey for us, that we are traveling from shore to the ocean, and hopefully today we will deep dive into the ocean of the journey of an accidental entrepreneur. So काफी अच्छा लग रहा है, and I'm happy that we are on this conversation talking about whatever little experiences I have in my life. So yes, over to you if you have any specific questions or if you would want to generally have a conversation, जैसा आप उचित समझे.
Ashish, you are a very interesting personality, I must say. बिकॉज इट इज सेड दैट एक जो ओक ट्री होता है वो एक पहले कभी छोटा सा बीज होता है, और बहुत दिनों तक वो जमीन के अंदर ही अंदर बहुत मेहनत करता है, और एक दिन वो बहुत विशाल वृक्ष हो जाता है, बिकम्स अ वेरी बिग ट्री. वी आई एम सीइंग यू फ्रॉम पास्ट 12 years because I live in the same premises where you are. एंड इन 12 सालों में हमने जिस तरीके से आपको देखा है, हर स्टेप अपने लाइफ का लेते हुए, वो डेफिनेटली आपसे बातचीत करके आपको जानने पे तो कंपेल करता है ही. इसके अलावा हमने आपको हमेशा फॉलो भी किया है वेरियस प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे, सोशल मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे. मेरा पहला सवाल आपसे ये आता है, चाइल्डहुड में आप कैसे थे?
So, I think so. I was a very lanky child. काफी दुबला पतला सा था. बट आई वॉज फेली नॉटी. क्रिकेट में काफ़ी रुचि रखता हूँ, मैं अभी भी रखता हूँ. उस टाइम पे खेलने में बहुत इंटरेस्ट था. आई यूज टू प्ले अ लॉट ऑफ क्रिकेट. सो इफ आई लुक बैक, आई एम 51 नाउ. सो मैं मेरी जिंदगी को 3 हिस्सों में डिवाइड कर सकता हूँ, ईच हैविंग 17 years ऑफ फेज. तो अगर हम फेज 1 की बात करें, विच इज़ अबाउट 1 to 17 years ऑफ माई लाइफ, ये काफ़ी फॉर्मेटिव रहे ईयर्स रहे हैं मेरी लाइफ के. और हाइंडसाइट में अगर मैं आप देखूं, आपने एक उदाहरण यूज़ किया कि एक ओक ट्री की तरह. एक्चुअली हम सबकी लाइफ इज़ लाइक अ ट्री. अ ट्री हैज़ टू ग्रो इन बोथ द डायरेक्शंस. हम जनरली एक पेड़ की ऊंचाई देखते हैं और कहते हैं काफ़ी लंबा पेड़ है, काफ़ी ऊंचा पेड़ है. बट हम ये भूल जाते हैं कि अ ट्री हैज़ टू ग्रो इन बोथ द डायरेक्शन साइमल्टेनियसली. We only see the growth which is evident in front of us. We don't realize or understand that the equal growth, or I would say more challenging growth, happens below the earth. Because अगर आप एक पेड़ को देखेंगे तो and below the earth जो growth होती है, that is against all the odds. क्योंकि वहाँ पे ना तो सनलाइट रहती है, मॉइस्चर रहता है, रॉक्स रहती है. But the root has to find its way through all these adversities, and then only the growth which is evident to the outside world is happening, right? So I think so the first 17 years of my life have been the formation of those roots, which then has helped me to build a tree for the next phase of my life, which is maybe about 17 to 34, and then the next phase of my life, which is where the fruit starts coming in. So अगर हम देखें तो basically there is a roots and there is a fruits. We often focus on the fruits, but we sometimes either don't appreciate or understand the importance of roots. So my formative years have been the roots, I would put it this way. And those roots have helped me to grow against many adversities, many challenges. जैसे अगर आप मैं आपको उदाहरण दूँ, आई वॉज बॉर्न इन अ स्मॉल टाउन कॉल्ड अकोला, विच इज़ इन महाराष्ट्र. और मेरी अपब्रिंगिंग हुई इंदौर में. तो इंदौर इज़ अ कॉस्मोपॉलिटन सिटी. तो एक बेनिफिट ये मुझे मिला कि आई एक्चुअली पिक्ड अप लैंग्वेजेस क्वाइट वेल. हिंदी, इंग्लिश, मराठी. और मेरे ख्याल में एक रूट का बहुत महत्वपूर्ण हिस्सा ये रहता है कि आपकी अडेप्टेबिलिटी अक्रॉस डिफरेंट जोग्राफीज, डिफरेंट मार्केट्स कैसी है. बिकॉज जस्ट लाइक अ ट्री, एक मेटाफर जो मैंने यूज़ किया, इट हैज़ टू सस्टेन वेदर्स, इट हैज़ टू सस्टेन डिफरेंट सॉइल रोटेशंस, बट इन स्पाइट ऑफ दैट इट हैज़ टू सस्टेन. तो मेरे फॉर्मेटिव ईयर्स में आई वॉज लकी दैट आई वॉज एक्सपोज टू डिफरेंट चैलेंजेस, डिफरेंट सिचुएशंस. एंड आई डोंट थिंक सो उस टाइम पे हमारे पास में, and I'm not saying it is only for me. I'm sure it's applicable to you. It's applicable to many people who might be listening to this podcast either now or subsequently. हमारी लाइफ में नो शब्द की जगह नहीं थी. आज के जो चॉइसेस हैं जनरेशन में, वो उस टाइम पे चॉइसेस नहीं थी. द लैक ऑफ चॉइसेस एक्चुअली अलाउस यू टू बी मोर स्ट्रॉन्गर, बिकॉज आपके पास में एक ही रूट है विच हैज़ टू डू इट दिस वे. करेक्ट. सो अगर मैं इसको एक एक उदाहरण के साथ मैं आपको प्रस्तुत करूं, आई रिमेंबर स्कूलिंग में आई वाज एन एवरेज किड. आई वाज नेवर अ टॉपर. हालांकि एजुकेशन के अंदर आई ऑलवेज सिक्योर्ड फर्स्ट क्लास मार्क्स, बट आई वाज नेवर अ टॉपर. तो मेरी जो कॉलिंग थी, मुझे ऑनेस्टली फर्स्ट 17 years में तो समझ में ही नहीं आई कि मैं करना क्या चाहता हूँ लाइफ में. एंड आई एम श्योर दैट इज अ प्रॉब्लम विद ऑलमोस्ट ऑल ऑफ अस. आई ऑल्सो सी दिस इज एन अपॉर्चुनिटी बिकॉज फर्स्ट 17 years यू आर जस्ट एक्सप्लोरिंग द वर्ल्ड. और मेरा एक्सप्लोरेशन का जरिया ये रहा कि आई गॉट टू ट्रैवल अलॉट. एंड आई वुड थैंक्स माई पेरेंट्स फॉर दैट, बिकॉज वो ट्रैवल ने मुझे जो ओपन अप किया टू अंडरस्टैंड कि अगर आपके पास में ट्रेन में रिजर्वेशन नहीं है तो भी आपको ट्रैवल करना है। श्योरिटी किसी चीज़ की नहीं थी लाइफ में, और वो लैक ऑफ श्योरिटी मेक्स यू फार मोर स्ट्रोंगर एंड फार मोर, आई वुड से, रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर योर एक्शंस। छोटा सा एग्जांपल देता हूँ। एक दार्जिलिंग में इंस्टीट्यूट है, हिमालयन माउंटेनियरिंग इंस्टीट्यूट करके। मुझे वहाँ एनरोल किया था मेरे मैटरनल अंकल ने, and I traveled from Akola to Calcutta in a train as a 17-year-old, wherein there was no external compass to help me. No GPS, no mobile, no communication with the outside world. So, in such a case, you realize the significance of an internal compass or internal GPS, जो आप एक्सप्लोर करना चालू करते हैं। वो सब में रहता है, वी ऑल हैव एन इंटरनल कंपास, बट आई थिंक सो एक्सटर्नल क्रचेस की वजह से हम उस इंटरनल कंपास को भूल जाते हैं। एंड आई थिंक सो दैट्स अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट लाइफ लेसन विच आई वुड वांट टू शेयर विद एवरीबडी, इफ यू थिंक दैट दैट्स रेलिवेंट, कि हम इंटरनल कंपास को जब तक एक्सप्लोर नहीं करेंगे जब तक हम एक्सटर्नल क्रचेस को यूज करेंगे। जस्ट लाइक एनी ह्यूमन बीइंग इज इक्विप्ड विद द एबिलिटी टू रन, बट अगर हम सिर्फ वॉक करना समझेंगे बिकॉज वी कांट रन और वी बिलीव वी कांट रन, देन वी विल नेवर बी एबल टू एक्सप्लोर दैट। सो आई ट्रैवल्ड अलोन फ्रॉम अकोला टू दार्जिलिंग। एंड इंटरेस्टिंगली दार्जिलिंग जाने के लिए देयर इज अगर आप गीतांजलि एक्सप्रेस लेते हैं तो उसके अंदर एक स्टेशन आता है सियालदा और एक स्टेशन आता है हावड़ा। कैलकाटा नाम का कोई स्टेशन ही नहीं।
सर
और जब मैं ट्रैवल, आई थिंक सो समबडी, ओके एनीवे, सो आई थॉट देयर वाज अ क्वेश्चन। सो जब मैंने ट्रैवल किया तो एज अ 17-year-old मुझे ये समझ नहीं आ रहा था कि मेरे को बताया गया था कि तुम्हें कैलकाटा उतरना है, वहाँ से आपको न्यू जलपाईगुड़ी का टैक्सी मिलेगी और न्यू जलपाईगुड़ी से आपको दार्जिलिंग आना है, और दार्जिलिंग में हिमालयन माउंटेनियरिंग इंस्टीट्यूट में आपका रजिस्ट्रेशन हो चुका है। न मोबाइल था, न कोई कम्युनिकेशन का जरिया था। ट्रेन में बैठा, सोचा कैलकाटा उतरेंगे, कैलकाटा नाम का स्टेशन ही नहीं है। पहले सियालदा आया, उसके बाद में हावड़ा आया, ट्रेन सारी खाली हो गई। टीटी ने आगे पूछा कि आपको कहाँ जाना है, मैंने कहा मुझे कैलकाटा जाना है। तो उसने बोला कैलकाटा तो है ही नहीं, आपको या तो सियालदा उतरना है या दार्जिलिंग हावड़ा उतरना है। तो ऐसी सिचुएशन में आप क्या डिसीजन लेते हैं, बिकॉज आपके पास में कोई एक्सटर्नल रिसोर्स नहीं है। अ, मैंने आपको ये उदाहरण इसलिए दिया क्योंकि जब मैं आज सोचता हूँ कि आज इस सिचुएशन में अगर मैं किसी एक 17-year-old को रखूं, आई एम नॉट ब्लेमिंग द यंग जनरेशन, प्लीज डोंट गेट मी रॉन्ग, आई एम नॉट साउंडिंग लाइक अ टिपिकल ओल्ड 50-year-old कि आज की जनरेशन में कुछ नहीं है। बट एक इंपॉर्टेंट लर्निंग है कि जो लाइफ स्किल हम सीखते थे वो शायद हम टेक्नोलॉजी की वजह से थोड़ा दूर होते जा रहे हैं। I myself am a proponent of significant use of technology, but technology cannot overpower your inner instinct is what I'm trying to arrive at. So these were my first formative years जिसमें मैंने ट्रैवल काफ़ी किया, काफ़ी एडवर्सिटीज़ को फेस किया। और ऑनेस्टली उस टाइम पे किसी ने ये नहीं बताया कि ये एडवर्सिटी है और आपको इसके थ्रू निकलना है। इट वॉज अ फॉर्म ऑफ लाइफ। आई डोंट थिंक सो वी अंडरस्टूड लाइफ इन एनी अदर वे दैट पॉइंट इन टाइम. So this is how my first, I would say, first part of my life, or the first episode of my life, if I were to see my life as a film or as a story, or a chapter. The first chapter of my life was about exploring world, not so much so keen interest into academics, but at least understanding what studies. I always believed, and I still believe, that education plays a very important role in your life. Everybody must focus on education, but everybody should not focus on topping. So this topper mentality is not the right mentality, because what you should be focusing on is what you absorbed out of that education and the knowledge. And a better knowledge is available to you जब आप आपके घर से बाहर निकलते हैं, जब आप असली दुनिया को देखते हैं। बिकॉज असली दुनिया में कोई टेक्स्ट बुक नहीं रहती है। देर इज नो थ्योरम, देर इज नो थ्योरी, देर इज नो फ्रेमवर्क, देर इज नो प्रोसीजर। You have to face the real life world, and that only comes. So आपकी academic studies plus your practical studies is what the foundation for my first 17 years of my life is. If I go back to my pre-example, मेरे roots form होना चालू हुए उस टाइम पे, because ये जो पहले 17 years से they were helping me to build my roots against lot of adversities. The second phase of my life is when I started गेटिंग अ सेंस ऑफ डायरेक्शन कि मैं करना क्या चाहता हूँ। और अगर आप देखें तो इट्स द सेम एनालॉजी। आज अगर मैं रिफ्लेक्ट करूँ मेरी लाइफ पे, अगर आपकी रूट स्ट्रांग नहीं होगी तो वो पेड़ कभी भी उखड़ जाएगा, बट अगर आपकी रूट स्ट्रांग है तो आप, हवा हो, मानसून हो, वेदर हो, you will only have a growth which is upward, right? And then you will eventually start bearing fruits, but this process takes time. And I think so the second virtue which I have learned over a period of time, that you can't be impatient. um, I think so nature has a way of providing things to everybody, but आपके पास में सब्र, पेशेंस होना बहुत जरूरी है. If you are impatient, you will lose everything. Correct. It's a story of you kill a golden, a hen which lays a golden egg because you're impatient, but you have to wait because nature has a way to give things. So the second phase of my life was again very interesting because between the age of 17 to 34 or 18 to 34, I started realizing that मुझे मेरा झुकाव किस तरफ है जिंदगी में. And that's the time when during my graduation, so I graduated from a college called Holkar Science College in Indore. I did my graduation with physics, chemistry, and mathematics, wherein higher mathematics was one of the focus areas for me. But उस टाइम पे काफी कुछ चीजें साइंस सब्जेक्ट में पढ़ी, जैसे आई स्टिल रिमेम्बर अ थ्योरम कॉल्ड बोल्जानो-वीसत्रास थ्योरम. आई डोंट नो आज लोग उस थ्योरम को समझते हैं, जानते हैं, बट वो थ्योरम जब हमें बताई गई कि ये थ्योरम है और इसको एग्जाम में आएगी, पढ़ना है, आई मस्ट मी अबाउट 20 समथिंग अराउंड दैट टाइम. एंड आई रियलाइज दैट ये थ्योरम तो समझ ली, बट उस थ्योरम की प्रैक्टिकल इम्प्लीकेशंस क्या है लाइफ में. और उस टाइम पे मुझे एक यूरेका मोमेंट आया कि अगर इसकी कोई प्रैक्टिकल इम्प्लीकेशंस नहीं है लाइफ में, तो मैं इसको पढ़ क्यों रहा हूँ. तो यू कुड कॉल थ्री इडियट्स का जो जेनेसिस था, मतलब आज जो मैं देखता हूँ तो मे बी उस टाइम पे मुझे भी ये लगा था कि ये थ्योरम तो मैंने पढ़ ली, बट इसका रेलेवेंस क्या है लाइफ में. एंड आई रियलाइज दैट इफ देयर इज नो रेलेवेंस तो मैं इसको पढ़ क्यों रहा हूँ. और ऑनेस्टली मैं आपको बताऊं उस टाइम पे, एंड आई डोंट अगेन ब्लेम एनीबडी, बट हमारे पेरेंट्स भी इतने इवॉल्व नहीं थे. तो पूछे तो किससे पूछे, कोई मेंटर नहीं. उस टाइम पे मेंटर का फंडा भी नहीं था. आज की डेट में हम सोचते हैं कि मेंटर्स हैं, एक गुरु हुआ करते थे, और उसके बाद में, बट गुरु जो है वो आपके गुरुकुल या आपको शिक्षा के संबंध में काफी दे सकते हैं ज्ञान. मेंटर जो वर्ड है ये अभी अभी आना चालू हुआ है, बट उस टाइम पे कोई मेंटर भी नहीं हुआ करते थे. बट ऐसी सिचुएशन में आई स्टार्टेड पार्टिसिपेटिंग इन अ सोसाइटी विच वाज कॉल्ड स्पिकमेके. Again, I don't know many people know about SPICMEKE or not, but SPICMEKE stands for Society for Promotion of Indian Classical Music and Culture Amongst Youth. काफी बड़ा नाम है और उसका एक्रोनिम भी बहुत बड़ा है. आज की डेट में IDK, I don't know, it's not that short like this, but still. So the point is that when I joined the society, and I joined it purely because I was curious. I was curious to know कि क्या करते हैं ये लोग. Seems to be well cultured people. तो मेरा draw उस time पे ये था कि they were cultured people. They were interested in talking about many things pertaining to art. तो एक आर्ट की तरफ थोड़ा सा झुकाव होना चालू हुआ. और I would say in hindsight, very lucky. एंड दिस इज ऑल डेस्टिनी. मुझे किसी ने बताया नहीं था कि आपको स्पिक में के ज्वाइन करना चाहिए. ऑन द कॉन्ट्री ये बताया गया था कि आपको एनसीसी ज्वाइन करना चाहिए, यू शुड ज्वाइन स्काउट गाइड्स एंड ऑल दैट स्टफ, बट स्पिक में के ज्वाइन करना चाहिए किसी ने बोला नहीं. व्हेन आई जॉइन स्पिक में के, I think so I count my blessings that I was able to actually work closely with doyens like Ustad Bismillah Khan, Shobha Gurtu, Rajan Sajan Mishra, पंडित शिव कुमार शर्मा, जाकिर हुसैन, गंगूबाई हंगल. आज की डेट में अगर मैं इन सब डॉयंस की बात करूं तो आई हैड द प्रिविलेज टू एक्चुअली बी अलोंगसाइड देम एंड ऑब्जर्व देम क्लोजली एंड अंडरस्टैंड कि अगर वो एक उस्ताद बिस्मिल्लाह का शहनाई बजा रहे हैं तो उसके पीछे की मेहनत क्या है. तो मैंने आपको जो एक इम्पेशंस की बात की, वो वहां से भी आती है कि, एंड आई स्टिल रिमेम्बर, कुछ कुछ चीजें आपके दे आर लाइक इनग्रेन्ड इन योर माइंड. करेक्ट. तो एक एपिसोड था ड्यूरिंग माय सेकेंड चैप्टर ऑफ माय लाइफ, जहाँ पे इंदौर में एक कॉलेज स्कूल है, एक्चुअली डेली कॉलेज. अगेन ब्रिटिशर्स के ज़माने का स्कूल है जिसको कि कॉलेज के नाम से बोला जाता है, डेली कॉलेज. तो उसमें हमारा 10th नेशनल कन्वेंशन था स्पिक मेके का. दिग्विजय सिंह उस टाइम पे मध्य प्रदेश के चीफ मिनिस्टर थे. वो आए, बड़ी बड़ी बातें की, राष्ट्र को इसकी ज़रूरत है, उसकी ज़रूरत है. आई एम नॉट गेटिंग पॉलिटिकल देयर, बट then as usual, since Ustad Bismillah Khan was the key परफॉर्मिंग आर्टिस्ट, उनको बुलाया गया और उनको बोला कि आप 2 शब्द कहिए, एंड आई वाज ऑन द स्टेज विथ हिम। तो आई वाज वेरी क्यूरियस कि अभी क्या बोलेंगे। और वो आए स्टेज पे और उन्होंने बिल्कुल खड़ी बोली में, खड़ी बोली इज बेसिकली देसी भाषा जिसको हम कह सकते हैं, और कोलोक्वियल लैंग्वेज एज यू वुड कॉल इट इन इंग्लिश। ही सेड दैट मुझे 2 शब्द बोलने के लिए कहा गया है। मैं मैं क्या बोलूंगा, मेरे से ज़्यादा तो मेरी शहनाई बोल जाती है। और वो इसलिए क्योंकि बड़े बूढ़ों से मैं सुनते आया हूँ कि एक साधे सब सधे, सब साधे सब जाए। If I were to translate that into English, what it means is that if you focus on one thing in life, everything else will fall in line. But if you focus on many things in life, everything else will fall apart. And he says that बचपन से मैं सिर्फ एक ही चीज साधते आया हूँ, जो शहनाई है, और आज मैं जो भी कुछ हूँ वही शहनाई की वजह से हूँ। That taught me the importance of focus. कि why you have to be focused in what you do. Because if you are not focused, there is no dearth of distractions available to us. आज की डेट में हमारे डिस्ट्रैक्शंस हैव मल्टीप्लाइड 10 फोल्ड और 100 फोल्ड, आई वुड से। थैंक्स टू इंस्टाग्राम, थैंक्स टू मल्टीपल स्क्रीन्स, यू आर कॉन्स्टेंटली टॉगलिंग, यू आर फोकसिंग फ्रॉम, आज आप इंस्टा पे हो, कल आप स्नैपचैट पे हो, परसों आप यूट्यूब पे हो, उसके बाद में आप, आई डोंट इवन नो व्हाट ऑल टूल्स पीपल हैव टुडे, बट आई एम प्रिज्यूमिंग दैट पीपल आर कॉन्स्टेंटली जगलिंग, एंड दिस जगलिंग makes you a monkey. If you really want to be a lion, you have to be focused. You would probably miss out on some of the praise, either because you're not hungry, but when you focus on a prey, you go with so much amount of preparation that there is no choice for the other person to surrender. And I think so that's the power of focus. So lessons are all around us. It's in trees, it's in wildlife, but somehow we tend to become more cosmetic and don't understand the significance of the learnings which we can get from our roots. So that's the second lesson, which means what I learned from Ustad Bismillah ka remained with me. बट ये भी एक लेसन तो समझ में आ गया कि फोकस करना है, बट किस पे फोकस करना है ये समझ में अभी भी नहीं आ रहा था। तो वो एक अलग बहुत बड़ा लाइफ क्वेश्चन था कि फोकस करना है, ये बात तो समझ में आ गई, बट किस पे फोकस करूं मैं। देन आई रियलाइज दैट आई नीड टू प्रोबेबली स्टार्ट राइटिंग। आई डोंट नो कहाँ से इंस्पिरेशन आई, बट आई सेड दैट मैं जो भी सोच रहा हूँ क्या मैं उसको लिखूं। तो आई स्टार्टेड राइटिंग माई डायरीज। Then I realized, and I think so, I would want to give this as a piece of suggestion, if anybody is interested, that you must write. Because what happens is that human memory is so ethereal कि our thoughts don't necessarily translate into the same words. Which is the reason, अगर आप देखेंगे तो मैं I come across many people जो सोचते कुछ हैं, बोलते कुछ हैं. Because there is a lot of transition loss or transmission loss which happens between what you think and what you speak. And the reason is that because you're not able to articulate it in the right words. And that can happen once you put your thoughts on a piece of paper, or in today's modern age on a piece of notes or whatever you may write. To give you an example, before I joined this, I actually wrote down what I want to talk about, so that at least I'm also structured in my mind and I'm not wandering all around. So that's the power of written words, because it lends a direction to what you want to do in life. Correct. So that's what, when I started learning these things, I started putting it down. I started writing it down. And then when I used to reflect back on that, it was almost like you're writing your own destiny. And believe you me, your day-to-day actions, which you write down, or your day-to-day thoughts, which if you write down on a piece of paper, and if you reflect back, you would realize that God is helping you write your own destiny in the form of those words. And I'll give you a very simple proof point of this. I have a diary which I had written somewhere in, if I'm not mistaken, 96 or 97. And in that diary, I had written that one day I would want to have a creative studio of my own. This is prophecy. In 2021 or in 2013, when I joined this creative studio, if I look back in hindsight, who gave me this instructions, who gave me this thought that it's not that I had a vision. We all could glamorize this by saying that I had a vision, which I don't accept. Everybody has the vision. What I would suggest is that perhaps we don't tend to take our visions or thoughts seriously. And hence, we don't even give it that much amount of effort to put it down on a piece of paper. And it's a very powerful tool. Your thoughts translating into written word is actually you writing your own destiny, because then you start working towards it. And you can only frame your destiny when you work towards it. So I think so. It's a very clear analogy. You have thoughts, you put it down in a piece of paper, you reflect upon that, and you start working towards that. Invariably, you will reach there. Correct. So the second phase taught me about the value of writing down, the value of focus. But still, the question remained that what should be my focus? Should I focus on sports? Should I focus on academics? Should I focus on within academics, what subject? Or should I focus on sporting as a career? Or should I focus? Interestingly, my dad wanted me to become an engineer. I appeared for pre-engineering test twice and I failed both the times. Okay. Now, call it destiny. My dad still didn't give up. He said that, okay, I will admit you to a donation college. We went to a donation college in a place called Pravara, which is in Ahmednagar district of Maharashtra. I had 64.3% in my 12th. और फॉर्मूला उनका ऐसा था कि 12 माइनस 100 - x इज योर डोनेशन. तो अगर आपके 64% है तो आपको 36,000, उस टाइम पे हजारों में बात होती थी, आजकल लाखों में बात होती है, आपको 36,000 डोनेशन देना है. एंड माई डैड सेड दैट ओके, अभी इंजीनियर बनाना है तो करना पड़ेगा. कोइंसिडेंटली मेरा एक और दोस्त मेरे साथ में था जिसके भी 64 पॉइंट समथिंग परसेंटेज थे. तो उसको आई डोंट नो व्हाट हैपेंड, उसको बोला कि आपको 35,000 डोनेशन देना है, तो मुझे 36,000 बोला. तो माई डैड आस्क्ड लॉजिकली कि इफ यू हैव द सेम प्रिंसिपल देन इट शुड बी सेम, इट्स नॉट अबाउट. हालांकि 1,000 रुपए भी बहुत बड़ी रकम होती थी उस टाइम पे. तो उन्होंने बोला कि मिस्टर लिमय, और भी बहुत स्टूडेंट्स हैं, आपको अगर लगता है तो आप यू कैन ऑलवेज एग्जिट द सीट. एंड दैट टाइम वी बोथ डिसाइडेड दैट वी डोंट वांट टू गेट हियर. I call it destiny. I don't blame the professor. I don't blame my father for it. And I think so it was good that I never became an engineer because my calling was not into engineering. So rejection आया, पीईटी में एडमिशन नहीं हुआ, ग्रेजुएशन में बीएससी किया, स्पिकमेके में एसोसिएट हुआ, फोकस की बात समझ में आई. उस टाइम पे जब हम इवेंट्स ऑर्गेनाइज करते थे तो उसमें कम्युनिकेशन एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट टूल हुआ करता था. और उस टाइम पे मुझे धीरे धीरे समझ में आया कि कम्युनिकेशन और reaching out to many people with a right messaging is a skill which I have. Because invariably, when we used to communicate to college principals, we used to communicate to the various sponsors. और स्पिकमेके इज अ नॉट फॉर प्रॉफिट बॉडी, मतलब कोई भी उसमें पैसा जो है वो रेवेन्यू के लिए नहीं आता था. इट यूज टू ओनली हेल्प यू इन टर्म्स ऑफ मीटिंग द एक्सपेंसेस. तो स्पॉन्सर्स से बात करना, टॉकिंग टू द प्रिंसिपल्स, स्टेक होल्डर्स से बात करना, उनको कन्विंस करना, it gave me a sense that I'm good at that. And then all things started coming together by saying, if you're searching for focus, if you can articulate yourself well, if you can write well, perhaps communication is your calling. And that's why I bummed upon the fact that if I want to do communication, then there are multiple avenues. So it's like a peeling of an onion layer by layer. The first layer is about finding focus, then understanding what you're good at, then understanding that you're curious about meeting people. So maybe is journalism a space for you? Perhaps yes. Is selling or marketing a space for you? Perhaps yes. And if you see, if I reflect back, I think so, whatever little I have done, they are both in marketing and journalism space. So there's a way wherein all things, there's a pattern, just that we don't, and it's very easy to see a pattern in hindsight, but it's very difficult to see a pattern in foresight, right? But again, आपको एक इंटरेस्टिंग एनालॉजी दूं, और मेरे ख्याल में वी ऑल नो, हम बचपन में भी ये कॉमिक्स में किया करते थे कि एक A4 साइज पेज है, उसमें 1 से लेके तो 100 तक नंबर्स लिखे हुए हैं, बट वो नंबर्स आड़े टेढ़े लिखे हुए रहते हैं. दे वर नॉट इन अ सीरियल ऑर्डर. तो एक के बाद में 2 जो है बिल्कुल नीचे आएगा, फिर 4 थोड़ा लेफ्ट में जाएगा, फिर 5 जाएगा. और जब आप उन नंबर्स को कनेक्ट करते हैं, then you start seeing, oh wow, this is a picture which has emerged.
Right.
I call it connecting the dots theory. हम सबकी जिंदगी में डॉट्स रहते हैं, बट हम उन डॉट्स को कनेक्ट नहीं करते हैं। और अगर आप उन डॉट्स को कनेक्ट करना चालू करें, which I call it is the power of network, then everybody is capable of seeing the big picture in life. And the big picture only emerges once you are able to connect the dots. If you don't connect the dots, and your dots are nothing else but the people whom you meet, like you are a dot in my network, and today, hopefully, through you, we are connecting with many more people. And that is allowing all of us to see the big picture. Right. But if I were
Right.
chosen, if I would have chose that, nahi, nahi, mujhe interest nahi hai, you and me would never be, and you and me and many other people who are joined today will not be able to see the dots, see the larger picture. So I think so. The second aspect, which again comes back to part B of the life is, or part B of the chapter of my book, is that I started realizing that I need to start connecting those dots. And when I connected those dots, I realized that perhaps marketing is my calling. And then I enrolled for a post-graduation in MBA. And from there on, I don't think so. So till this part of my life, I was always iffy. I was always questioning. I was learning, curious, confused. You could use a lot of these metaphors or adjectives to define my phases in life. But roots were growing strong. So again, the roots were I had to invest time. I never was shying from investing my time towards these things.
One thing just I want to say here, एक सवाल जो इन सारे सबके बीच में मेरे दिमाग में आ रहा है कि 1 से 17 साल की उम्र का आपने एक खाका बताया, फिर 17 से 34 साल की उम्र का एक खाका आपने बताया। इस बीच में जब हम आप अपने चाइल्डहुड की बात करते हैं, अपने कॉलेज डेज की बात करते हैं, एज ए यंग आशीष लिमय की बात करते हैं, तो जो प्रिंसिपल्स और जो वैल्यूज लेके आप चल रहे थे, उसमें आपके पेरेंट्स की क्या छाप है? What is it that you have drawn from your parents?
I think so. If I can attribute one aspect which I would owe it to my parents, is that they gave me a lot of free hand. Okay, they gave me a lot of liberty and freedom, and they also pushed me to explore. They never. I mean, I give you a small example. आज की डेट में how many of parents? I'm sure a lot of your audience are parents today, would want to send our 17-year-old kid to a completely, you know, uh, a remote location without any mobile, without any communication. Right. So I think so that's a very important tool wherein they believe that it's for you to learn, it's for you to conquer, it's for you to fail, and it's for you to succeed. So the
So
sense of
just to check for the audience, this is you're talking about when you went to Darjeeling for
that's
mountaineering
one
school.
that's one part of it. The
That's one
second
part.
part, yeah, that's one part of it. So give you that freedom to figure out things on your own. Okay. Ultimately, the culture played an important role, the roots played an important role. So with that freedom comes a lot of responsibility automatically. Correct. I mean, there's a saying from Spider-Man with more power comes more responsibility. It's the same line. When you're free, you've got power. You could do many things. But then you also need to be responsible and answerable. So that's your cultural upbringing. Right. So I think so that's I would definitely attribute to them, especially my mom. I think so. She said that, okay, go ahead and explore. I don't think so that there should be any challenges for you to do so. So again, a little flashback. My dad is a banker. He used to work with bank and he had a transferable job. So my mom raised two children completely on her own. And I think so that DNA came from there wherein she fought against many odds because bringing two children is not easy. I mean, I can see I have two children and I can really understand the pain which Aditi goes through, right? It's not easy. I get it. But I didn't hear, concerns, challenges, or for that matter, any crib notes around those lines, right? So maybe it came from there that if God gives you responsibility, you have to accept it with a sense of smile. And you have to fulfill that responsibility. So she did that and she imbibed those skills by saying, okay, it's your responsibility. If you have to go, then you have to figure out a way to do it. I'm not there to help you. I'm there to support you, but I can't double up for you everywhere. So that sense of independence is what I believe was a great virtue. I mean, to answer your question. And then, of course, the freedom to choose your career, which I think so was again an important virtue. And I don't know whether I call it design or I call it destiny, that none of them had a say in my career. So,
Right.
to some sense, it could also be because of the lack of knowledge about what I'm doing. Okay. Like, I'm sure many people still don't understand what I do. Okay. Even in this day and age, many people still don't understand because it's a very niche career, it's a very niche space. But to close the answer on your question, I think so it was a sense of freedom, responsibility which comes with that freedom, and being culturally aligned to what you should be doing in your life are the three traits which I definitely owe it to them.
Thank you so much, Ashish. I understand that really gives us an insight with in terms of parenting and molding a child. Because when we see you today at 51 years of your age, and with the kind of patience you have shown throughout, or just तरीके से you're carrying this journey with full focus on your career, balancing with your family life, I would say that you are actually achieving that idealism which we talk about in theory and trying to implement that practically also. Now, having said that, मेरे जहन में एक बात आती है कि आज आप एक सक्सेसफुल एंटरप्रेन्योर हैं और अपने आप को हर साल एक सस्टेन करने के लिए पूरी मेहनत करते हैं, चाहे वो फिजिकली फिट रहना हो, स्पिरिचुअली ग्रो करना हो, फैमिली वाइज स्टेबल होना हो। लेकिन जब आप अपने वल्नरेबल एजेस में थे, कॉलेज एजेस में, टीन एज में थे, उस टाइम पर, जैसा कि आपने कहा, उस टाइम ज्यादा कोई मेंटर नहीं हुआ करते थे, तो क्या कभी आपके साथ कोई ऐसा इंसिडेंट हुआ, कोई ऐसी स्टोरी है आपकी लाइफ की wherein you tutored yourself to come out of a situation and go on?
Um, I think so. There's a very interesting episode which happened in phase 3 of my life, which is part C. So, and I'll come to that, but just the rejoinder so that people don't miss out on the journey. So,
Yes.
from part B, when I decided that I wanted to do marketing or MBA, I did that, and my first job was with a company called the Times of India. Um, I joined Times of India. That grew me to the aspect of journalism, do many jobs, and then I moved on from cities, from Indore to Bhopal, from Bhopal to Delhi. And when I was in Delhi, that's the time when I was getting married, and I met Aditi through Times Matrimonials. That's how we both of us got to know each other. And Aditi is from Bombay, so that's when we, after a stint of 1.5 year in Indore, so she's done her MA in Indian classical music, as you already know. So her calling was also music, my calling was media, and it so happened that I got certain options in Mumbai, and that's when we decided to move to Mumbai. I think so. That's a phase in my life wherein we were again walking into a completely unknown, right? Moving in Bombay, building your own investments and infrastructure in a city was a tough phase. Everybody goes through it. It's not that I'm saying I've only gone through it. But I'll quickly close this part B and come to the part C, which is where the answer to your question lies. So when we traveled this journey, I came across many challenges, many job changes, many learnings. And I fast track to, I mean, of course, the challenges in terms of, shifting to a new city, adjusting to the fast-paced life of Mumbai, bringing our first child to birth, which is Ananya in 2004. And then, being a parent, taking additional responsibility, shifting jobs, ensuring that you're slowly inching towards building a strong foundation and a strong roots for your home. 2013, I'm fast pacing to 2013 now. Many things happened in between. My mom had a severe case of kidney dialysis. So both me and Aditi went through a lot of tough time in terms of constantly having a growing kid at home and at the same time an ailing mom. So we had to look after both, and our lives were clearly divided between these two parts. Uh, in hindsight, I think so we could have you know we could have thought about this whole process much better, but that's okay. I mean, you have to deal with the cards which life gives you. So, fast track to 2013, and the reason I'm coming to 2013 is because that's again a very turning point in my life, which is where I'm talking about, trying to give an answer to your question. I was working with Lolintas, which is one of the established creative agency in India. I was working as a senior vice president, had a very stable job. I think so. In 2013, I was 40 years of age, and I could have easily, said that, fine, everything is fine. I'm in a good position. I could have continued doing so. I don't know what happened, but there was an ad in a magazine called Campaign, which is an advertising magazine. And there was a company based in London called Happy Finish, which was looking for a business development executive in India. So Pragya ji, just to understand between all of us and also the audience, I was working as a senior vice president in Lintas, and the ad was for a business development executive. I don't know what triggered. I applied for that ad. And I knew that I will get through. I was very confident that I would get through. But what drove me was not to seek a job as a business development executive. What drove me was to actually get an audience with the key stakeholders, which were the founder of the company and the other two directors of the company. And all of them were based in London. So I actually used this as an opportunity to get an audience with them. And when I was finally discussing, they said that, Ashish, it's a great candidature. We know that your experience counts, but don't you think so you're overqualified for this job? And I said, yes, you're right. I am overqualified for this job, but I'm not applying for this job. So they said that, what do you mean? I said, I believe you don't need a business development executive for a growing company like yours. What you need is a country head for this growing company. And there was a silence, because I don't think so they were expecting that somebody would apply for a business development executive role and sell them a country head position. And when I say sell, I'm saying this with utmost responsibility. I did not sell them anything which was wrong. Let's face it, each one of us does selling in life. But sometimes we feel a little taboo about this word sales. But the fact is that sales is a very important life lesson, which we all must learn. And they took a pause and said that, let this sink in. You're saying that you would want to essentially pitch in for a country head position for this particular company. I said, yes, you heard it right, because I believe I would be able to give you that growth which you deserve. So this is answer your question, that when you are faced with certain adversities like this, I mean, I won't call it adversity. On the contrary, I would say that I was very comfortable. I was very comfortable in my job. But I think so, one life lesson which I realize is that when you're too comfortable, you should start becoming uncomfortable. Because comfort is the reason for degrowth at many times. Because you become comfortable, you become sort of complacent. You don't want to change things. And when things don't change, you are headed for downward spiral in your life. So change is the only constant, as they say. So I pushed for change when change was not coming to me. That's one aspect which I would want to talk about. I joined this company and I was really able to walk the talk. So it's not just that I talk to them, I walk the talk. And this is where my grassroots learning of being focused on what I want to do, understanding your calling in terms of communication, selling, sponsorship, sales helped me. We grew the company. I was responsible for China market. So I used to handle both Shanghai and Mumbai operations for them. Now comes the adversity जो आपने बोला था, and that's a very interesting pivotal point in my life. Sometime about 2017 or 2018, I decided to do my second post-graduation, which was from a company, which was from an institute called INSEAD, which is based in France, Singapore. And I started to enroll for that. This was a one-year program, which needed a significant amount of investment of time and, of course, money from me. Apart from me, it also needed a lot of support from Aditi, because she had to ensure that she's able to balance the life when I'm focusing on my studies. So full credit goes to her also in terms of supporting me. But the adversity came when I completed this course and I realized that there were certain funds which were promised from my parent company, which is in London. And those funds could not come because there was certain disagreement between the directors of the company. And as a result, the founder of the company was asked to leave, who I used to report to. His name was Stuart Waplington. He's based in London. So he was asked to leave, and as a result, all the decisions which he had taken were reversed. One of the decisions was putting funds into a growing market like India. Now that left me high and dry because I was the director of the company. I was an Indian director. And if anybody who understands the company laws in India, as an Indian director, you are answerable to the Indian government for taking care of the entire functioning of the company, which included ensuring that us time pe, there was no GST, so there was a service tax, that service tax filings are proper and so on and so forth. And since the funds were likely to come in, we prioritized investing on salaries for people and ensuring that salaries are paid in time, and we have a reserve for the salaries. But we chose to say that we will take care of the service tax once that money comes. This was a major wrong decision which I had taken. Because if you're a director of the company, I do agree in books it says that put people first, which I did, but you need to put government first. Because if you take pangas with the government, your people would also not be able to sustain. So I did this mistake and I own it up completely on me. I don't want to externalize the blame onto anybody. I took a decision that we should put people first. And as a result, we had no money to pay to the government on account of service tax because the money which was supposed to come from London could not come. I was a director of the company. I had a choice. I had a choice to leave, resign from that company. I was about 45 years of age. And with my experience, I believe I would have easily got a job. But I chose against it. I did not resign. I did not run away from the challenge. And I said that I'll try and get some funds arranged. And that juncture, I had to mortgage my flat. And that's a decision which I took along with Aditi and me. And we said that we'll go for this bet in life because I do believe in this business. I believe that I'm passionate about what I do. So I mortgaged my flat. I took a loan against the property and I put the money back into the company on the context that I should be able to buy out in equity. That is a big turning point in my life because I became an accidental entrepreneur. Again, since you said I had a choice, I had a choice of resigning from the company because I was an employee. I could have resigned. But I said, no, I want to fight this battle for my people and for myself. And I thought somewhere there was again a divine intervention or maybe the compass, GPS, as we call it. The GPS told me that this is what you want to do. And if that needed certain fighting against resistances in terms of getting funds, I reached out to a friend of mine, Kushal, who I must mention on this podcast or this discussion. I reached out to him. He was my friend who hails from Indore. And I told him that aisa hai. He said, Ashish, if you're there, I will invest. So I pulled in from friends and family, as they call it. He invested, both of us put in money. And then we went to UK and said that we want to buy out the equity. And they were surprised. They said that, are you sure? I said, yes, we are sure. The story did not end here, Pradnaji. We invested our money. Thankfully, the money was invested in India, not into UK. We paid up the company dues to the government of India. So we were completely answerable to the government. We were coming through to our responsibilities. But we had never imagined that there would be a COVID. Everything went well. The shareholder agreement was signed. We were supposed to have a majority equity into the Indian entity. And then what happened is COVID happened. The whole world shut down. UK went through a major crisis and the parent company filed for bankruptcy. What it meant was that you have put in money into a venture and the parent company has filed for insolvency. And like you have an NCLT in India, there is which is, the tribunal court which takes care of insolvency. There's an insolvency practitioner appointed by the court in London. What it meant was that we had to fight our case with the lawyers being appointed in London, which means you're paying in pounds, not in Indian rupees. When the whole world is shut down, we were locked up in a 1 BHK against all the odds and trying to do a call with the lawyers in London to fight for our case, which we fought and we won. So they agreed that, yes, it's a rightful due. So the point which I'm trying to make is that the journey which started in 2013 with a hunch that I would want to sell them a position for a country head transformed into growth to handle two major geographies in India, which is India and China, and then went on to fight a battle of sacrificing or maybe putting your own skin in the game, as they call it, by putting your own flat in the game as a mortgage and ensuring that you're able to sustain the company, and then again fight another unforeseen battle in the form of COVID and an insolvency practitioner in London. And then we fought the battle, we won it, and then we only thing which we did was to change the name of the company. So this is a big adversity or big challenge which I believe professionally I have been able to overcome thanks to the support from family first, Aditi, and to a large extent my friends, and of course my team who were able to support me. They said, Ashish, if you are there, we believe in your intent and we will support you. Post which today, I think so we have been able to carve a niche for ourselves in this content space. We are being seen as a bellwether for good content in India. And I think so now we are thinking of going global. So that's going to be the next growth story for us. But the
So
point
when
is that
you
this
say,
growth, I gave you an example of roots and fruits. Roots have to constantly fight for their space to go deep and deep into the earth so that the tree goes higher and someday you get the fruits. So a tree has to grow in both the directions.
Ashish, you seem to be a man of principles and you are a entrepreneur. You're doing business also and you're creating content. How do you take care of creativity and commercial aspects both together? जो आपका जो मतलब एक ऐसा कंटेंट जो सेलिएबल भी हो और जिसमें ऐसी क्रिएटिविटी हो जो इमोशंस को भी टच करे, जो रेलेवेंट हो, इस तरीके का कंटेंट ब्लेंड कैसे करते हैं आप?
Um, Quite a good question you have asked, because generally क्या होता है कि जो एक प्योर आर्टिस्ट रहता है और प्योर क्रिएटिव पर्सन रहता है, he doesn't care for commerce. करेक्ट. बहुत से लोग अच्छी पेंटिंग करते हैं बट शायद एमएफ हुसैन एक ही है, और कई बार एमएफ हुसैन की पेंटिंग समझ में भी नहीं आती है बट मे बी एक ब्रांड है तो लोग सोचते हैं कि नहीं बहुत अच्छी पेंटिंग है. सो अ प्योर आर्टिस्ट sometimes doesn't care for commerce, and a pure commercial guy or a pure commerce person will not care for the creativity. So there's a saying कि लक्ष्मी और सरस्वती कभी भी साथ में नहीं आते, एंड इसकी रैमिफिकेशन या इसका मैनिफेस्टेशन आप देखते हैं इन रियल लाइफ ऑल्सो, राइट. So to answer your question, how do you strike the right blend? I think so the right blend forms primarily from a knowing your audience, because ultimately every piece of creativity has an audience in mind. If you know the audience, if you know the consumer insights as to what the audience would like to see or would like to hear or would like to listen to, then you start blending that creativity and consumer insights into your creative structuring, and that finds some amount of commerce, right? So if there is a secret sauce, the secret sauce lies in knowing your customer or knowing your consumer, knowing your audience. If you know them, you are able to curate something for that specific audience. There is no one size fits all kind of a concept in creativity. And hence people who say creative are obviously either siloed or looking at, I personally don't believe in the fact that a creative person should not understand commerce. I completely disagree with this hypothesis. Because then please understand that creativity needs resources, and resources come from money, and commerce gives birth to money. So you can't defy this value chain, right? You have
True.
to be very clear about this value chain, and you have to ensure that you try and get that magical balance which knows from coming your audience. Again, I mean, I'll use a analogy or maybe a anecdote. My mom used to say, it's a saying in Marathi called Ati Tithe Mati. What it means is Ati is extreme, Mati is mitti. So whenever you reach extremes into anything, the only result is mud. You'll go to, get dissolved in mud. So it's like this. Your creativity and commerce, you have to have that balance. And that balance can be achieved once you know your audience. Hence, I would say, even in my company, I always tell my artist, sometimes artists are so engrossed into that piece of work that they believe that they are funding it. And I ask them this question, who's funding it? And if the client is funding it, the client has a right to agree or disagree on what you say. So please don't bring your personal biases into a commercial work. But for you to not get into that trap, you must understand your audience. If you don't know your audience, then you are just a creative with no direction and no meaning. And honestly, there are no takers for that.
True. So this gives us a learning कि जब हम अपनी लाइफ में भी कोई क्रिएशन कर रहे हैं, चाहे वो कोई पोएट है, कंटेंट राइटर है, सिंगर है, ऑथर है, लिरिक राइटर है, so we should not get into our personal egos. Rather, we should look into कि जो हम कंटेंट प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं, वो कितना रेलेवेंट है उनके लिए जिनके लिए हम वो क्रिएट कर
Absolutely.
रहे हैं. That's a very good
We
message
have
that
a marketing term for it called, sometimes we try our stories to come inside out, which means from me to you, whereas it should be outside in, it from you to me. When you, uh, I mean, it may sound a little cliche or little tongue twister, but all good stories are outside in, not inside out. And outside in means you know who's the audience, who's the consumer. And then you start building a story which is of interest to them, and that's where gives you an outside in perspective. Because when you disassociate yourself with you as a person, that's when you really start looking at the audience. And you put, for example, if I put myself in an audience list today, would I want to hear what I'm saying? Then it makes sense to talk. Otherwise, it makes no sense. I'm just blabbering. I'm talking about my own stories, which may not have any relevance. So that's
great. That this is something a very great insight. मैंने एक बात कहीं पढ़ी थी कि अगर if you will meet yourself, would you love yourself?
absolutely.
So वही बात मैं यहाँ पर ट्रांसेंड कर पा रही हूँ आपकी बात से that if I am at in audience, would you love to listen what
Absolutely.
is being said? So that's definitely an intention at Shaddal Radio that we create such talk shows which leave a message to all the ages who are listening to this conversation because the journey that you just mentioned. So, and I think that we are going to read this book from you, Journey of Accidental Entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
This
I'm
book is
going to
going
intend
to
to
come.
write a book called Accidental Entrepreneur, and I hope
Yes,
it brings some bit of insights to people. In fact, there's a saying, you should define yourself by your efforts, not by your sufferings. And I think so
and
that's very important, that if you start defining your life by your sufferings, there is no end of sufferings. Everybody around you suffers. Everybody around us suffers.
and
But
I would, yes,
you
I
got to
wish.
define by your efforts. If your efforts are there,
Yes.
I'm sure you'll reach. But if you define yourself by your sufferings, you will never reach anywhere.
Some more questions I do have, though we have
Yeah.
already spent some time, but then you are such
Yeah.
a vast personality. My questions are not ending here. एक सवाल जो मैं यहाँ से लेना चाहूंगी कि आप मैनेजमेंट स्कूल्स में एज अ फैकल्टी भी विजिट करते हैं, वहां पे जो एस्पायरिंग प्रोफेशनल्स हैं मीडिया और एडवर्टाइजिंग के, उनके लिए क्या की नोट्स आप देना चाहेंगे?
Uh, I think so. Primarily, the discussion is more about realizing that how content plays a very important role in our lives these days. My most the if I can highlight the broad areas of my conversation with any of the students across management institutes or even otherwise, is that with the changing technology, content is emerging as the most important connecting tool. And people who realize the importance of content will go places. Either, and today everybody is a content creator, right? There was a time when the content creation responsibility, I'm talking about maybe early 90s, it was limited to newspapers and magazines. Then it shifted to television. then it shifted to news channels, and now you have the emergence of influencers and people who, you could influence your decision. So what is happening is that the content is getting democratized. And with the democratization of content, the power rests in the hands of consumers to be able to create that content. And hence, either you're a marketeer or you are maybe a student. You must understand that the content power is significantly high, and one must accept that as a power. I'll give you very very small example again, जो कि मैं management institutes में भी use करता हूँ. And there's a lesson for all of us. I used to travel when I was in Low Lintas. I used to travel from Borivali to Lower Parel in a taxi. And daily in the morning, we used to find that आज की डेट में भी ट्रैफिक जैम है, नथिंग हैज चेंज्ड, बट ट्रैफिक जैम उस टाइम पे भी बहुत थे. आज की डेट में रीजन अलग है कि मेट्रो चल रहा है, उस टाइम पे रीजन अलग था कि ट्रक्स आते थे काफी. तो वी रियलाइज कि प्रॉब्लम ये है कि बहुत सारे ट्रक्स सिटी में एंटर करते हैं इन द मॉर्निंग आवर्स, विच इज एक्चुअली दी हाई कम्यूट टाइम फॉर पीपल. एंड वी यूज टू से ये ट्रक्स नहीं आने चाहिए. एंड इट स्ट्रक अपॉन मी कि what am I doing about it? Am I just cribbing? Am I just one of those many thousand stranded passengers on the streets of Mumbai who's complaining about it? And I said, no, let's do something. So what I did was that I shifted to power of Twitter that point in time. It's X now. Wherein I started sitting in a taxi, since I had nothing much to do except for reading all the newspapers which I've read. I still read about 2 to 3 newspapers daily. And I think so that's a very good habit which everybody should start inculcating. Reading newspapers is a good habit. Anyway, coming back to the point, I said that I have the mobile. I started clicking pictures of the trucks on a particular location where I spot them during the peak traffic hours. All I would do was to record the number plate of the truck and tag it to a GPS location and the time of the day, which automatically gets recorded. And I started tweeting about it with a hashtag called truck spotting. And I reached out to the commissioner of police. I reached out to all the venerable audience and including some bit of my followers by saying that this is a genuine attempt to request that trucks should not be allowed during the daytime to decongest the traffic on flyovers. And Pragyaji, to my surprise, a lot of people were having the same problem. So when they saw that there was a truck spotting hashtag, they also started doing the same. They started clicking pictures and tagging it with truck spotting. It was a very honest, but a very simple initiative. It reached the commissioner of police and they took cognizance of that and they ensured that trucks are not allowed. But it didn't stop here. When this grew into a movement, and which happened purely with no political influence, with no religious influence, with no influence whatsoever, a common man like me could actually trigger a movement by observing a valid concern which affects all of us and acting on it. Coming back to the point, and that's eventually it became a Citizen Journalist Award, for which I got a Citizen Journalist Award also during at CNN IBN. The point is that we all become armchair critique. We should resist from being an armchair critique because it's very easy to criticize. It's very difficult to do. And if you can do it, you are a hero. But you don't have, heroes are no special characters. And I think so that's one of the reasons why, we were born on a dose of comics, Vikram Betal, or maybe, Bahadur and all those comics which we used to read. Because we would seek hero in somebody else. Why can't you and me be the heroes?
True.
Is there a superhero carrying, like, is there a Krish? There's no Krish. There's no Spider-Man. There's no Superman. There's no Batman. There's no Iron Man. Every man and woman has a capability to be the hero. But we either are lethargic, uninitiated, or we are lazy. मराठी में saying है कि शिवाजी पैदा झाला पाहिजे पण बाजूच्या घरामध्ये, not in my house. Shivaji should be born, but in the next door house. But my point is, what's stopping you from becoming the Shivaji? Why are you looking for a hero in somebody else? Why can't you? And who is hero? Hero is no special attributed guy who, who's very handsome, who's
Absolutely.
very well built or very well cultured. We all have the capability to become the hero. We just don't try hard. So that's one. Coming back to your answer in terms of management institution, how I did that, because I realized the power of content. If you have a good content and if you are addressing the right roots, you will be able to attract a lot of people. There's a saying in management, which again I use it as a metaphor, which I've learned from my mentor, Dr. Bhaskar Das, is there is tremendous power in the right content, because if you have the right content, you're able to build the right community. The right community builds the right conversations, and those right conversations sometimes lead to commerce. So if your intent is not commerce, like in this case of truck spotting, my intent was no commerce, but my intent was to create the right content, which will drive the right communities, which will drive the right conversations, which will drive the change. So either you drive a content to build communities, to build conversations, which can drive a change, or if you're a marketeer, you could use the same workflow to change the last word, which is change, to commerce. So
True.
you build content to build communities, which drive conversations, which drive commerce. If you're a marketeer, if you're not a marketeer, you could drive change. So that's invariably which I talk about. And then of course, there are different examples of my work, but broad speaking, two things: don't be an armchair critic in your life. Point number one. Don't think that there are heroes which are outside. Don't find escapism in media. We tend to, why do people watch movies and flock to movies? Because they want to forget their life and sink into that, you know, alternative world for 2 to 3 hours.
You
But the
just
fact,
gave an answer to a question which was in my mind. Actually, I was going to ask you that you achieved so much in your life. Do you also watch movies beyond
of
this?
course, I watch movies for fun. I watch movies for inspiration. I watch movies for I watch a lot of documentaries, because I believe documentaries actually allow you to understand the challenges and the diplomacy and the politics in many situations, including geopolitical equations. So I watch a lot of documentaries. I love watching comedy, because that's your that just gives you a little bit of lighting effect on your own mind. Um, and any form of movie, but generally I prefer to gravitate towards documentaries and comedy. I'm not a great fan of too much amount of over the top movies. I mean, like Pushpa, I watch Pushpa, just to give you an example. It's an over the top movie, and again, we are finding escapism by putting somebody as a hero who's a smuggler and who's a you know uh, sandalwood smuggler, but we find heroes in them. But we won't find heroes in day-to-day life. Like the person who comes to our building, who cleans our building, is a hero in my mind. He may not wear a cape,
True.
but that's
So
okay. He's
true.
doing a job because of which we are living a, a clean life around us. So he's a hero according to me. But we will not identify him as a hero. Why? Because he's a cleaner. So why hero has to save a heroine? Why hero has to save Earth? Hero could be saving a dog. Hero could be cleaning your home. Hero could be anybody around us.
So true. While you were saying that about this hero aspect, um, today people are very much uh, talking about AI, and they're sad in their life and in various aspects. They keep talking, even youngsters in IT, that these disruptive technologies, these emerging AIs, they're taking away our jobs. And young generations and midlife and people who are going through midlife, they're also getting sad and they're not helping themselves in trying to understand that how they can be hero in their own lives, to avoid the job crisis if they are thinking that AI is creating or whatsoever. So, what would you like to tell them? उन्हें आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे जो अपने लाइफ के हीरो नहीं बन रहे हैं और इमर्जिंग टेक्नोलॉजीज को जॉब पे खतरा बना करके डिप्रेस हो रहे हैं या बैक सीट ले रहे हैं?
See, but technology is here to stay. It's very easy for us to say that technology is the villain, but technology is not a villain. Technology can be your ally, provided you upskill yourself, right? And upskilling comes from coming out of your comfort zone. So to answer your question, see, जनरली प्रज्ञा जी क्या होता है कि जिंदगी में किसी को एक विलन बना के आप आपकी कहानी नहीं लिख सकते. बाय दैट लॉजिक एवरीबडी इज अ विलन. ओके. So adversities are not villains. Adversities are your friends who basically give you the route to success. So AI is not a villain. And generally, we have been, you know, राम है तो रावण है, राइट? परशुराम है तो अर्जुन है. सो द क्वेश्चन इज दैट शक्ति का संतुलन हर जगह रहता है. टू एवरी पॉजिटिव देयर विल बी अ नेगेटिव. So the positive part of technology is what I would choose to look at in the AI parlance, and not say that AI is going to snatch our jobs. Yes, there will be some amount of job losses, but those job losses are because somebody is not productive, not because that somebody is not useful. Ultimately, technology will ensure that we are able to move faster. The trade-offs in technology would always remain. Okay, but the point is that if I am adapting only the negative part of technology, then I am just putting technology as a villain and taking that as an excuse for non-performance, which I should my non-performance. So generally क्या होता है कि हम किसी एक एडवर्सिटी को विलन बना के, जिसे कहते हैं ना, एक हिंदी में कहावत है कि किसी के सर पे घड़ा फोड़ देना. तो ये वो चीज है कि हमने एक टेक्नोलॉजी को विलन बना दिया और बोला कि टेक्नोलॉजी ने मेरा जॉब खा लिया. बट क्या टेक्नोलॉजी इज हंग्री फॉर जॉब्स? नो. टेक्नोलॉजी ओनली गिव्स यू प्रोडक्टिविटी. Technology will remove unproductivity. It will not remove jobs. It will remove unproductivity. So you have to choose which side of jobs you are on. You are being unproductive space or productive space. और generally unproductive आदमी इसलिए होता है क्योंकि हम हमारे comfort zone में बहुत अच्छी तरह बैठे रहते हैं. And which is I keep on saying that the day you get comfortable, you should start becoming uncomfortable. And which is the reason why I always believe that in any sphere of your life, आपके पास में कार है, आपके पास में कंफर्ट है, बट आपके पास में भगवान ने दो पैर भी दिए हैं जिससे कि आपको थोड़ा चलना पड़ेगा. बट आप चलेंगे क्या उसमें? नहीं चलेंगे. क्यों? क्योंकि वो डिस्कम्फर्ट है थोड़ा सा. बट उस डिस्कम्फर्ट से ही आपको हेल्थ आती है. तो
True.
यू हैव टू कम आउट ऑफ योर डिस्कम्फर्ट, यू हैव टू कम आउट ऑफ योर कंफर्ट जोन्स. योर टेक्नोलॉजी, you cannot blame things on technology by saying AI is to blame. AI is here to stay. You like it or you don't like it. But you have to understand that which part of AI is influencing your skills and upskill yourself, learn those skills, and make technology your friend.
So much to sum up, so much is still remaining. Now, quickly, some questions from the adventure aspect of your life. How have you been balancing with, you know, being an accidental entrepreneur? You went through so much, media professional, communication professional, and then scaling up your company, coming up to a speed which gives you a professional success, a name in the market. उसके साथ में माउंटेनियरिंग, ब्लॉगिंग, साइकिलिंग, फोटोग्राफी, ये सब कुछ. How have you been balancing?
If you ask how rainbow balances seven colors, the answer is that a rainbow has to have seven colors. Okay, rainbow doesn't balance seven colors. Rainbow has to have seven colors. So you cannot have only one shade of your life. Your life can only be complete once you are able to complement it with multiple shades. And those shades need not be of gray. Those shades could be of colors. And those colors are basically symbolized or are symbolic by your different passions of life. So, and those passions I switched to a lot of expeditions. I won't call mountaineering. I would love to do mountaineering, but I think so. I'm well past my age to actually do full scale mountaineering, but I do participate in a lot of treks which actually take me out of my comfort zone, honestly. Because then that tells me that if I have a very comfortable, cozy office with air conditioning, that's not how I want to define life. I want to define life by getting into a completely unknown area wherein I don't even know that where will I get to sleep, what will I get to eat, what weather I will be facing. You have to be prepared for a lot of uncomfortable things which life exposes you, because that makes you far more capable, and that adds one color in your rainbow if you really want to see your life as a rainbow. Cycling, same thing. It teaches you discipline. It teaches you consistency. I recently did 100 kilometer cycling, and I drove down to BKC and I drove back to BKC after cycling for 100 kilometers, because I wanted to just ask myself that, am I ready to get into that uncomfortable situation? And my body said yes. And I said, let's give it a shot. And I successfully completed that. But that's only happened because you were consistent. Consistency is again a very important virtue. I don't think so that, many people are consistent at things, and they expect, again, there's a very interesting saying that, when you're creating, let's say, a statue, or you're cutting a tree with an axe, it's not the first blow which will cut the tree. It may be the 100th blow which will cut the tree. But 100th blow has happened because there have been 99 times you have been consistent. And you can't just attribute the 100th blow to your success that I cut the tree. You forget very conveniently those 99 blows were also equally important. So the 99 blow are consistency. 100 blow is your victory. So consistency is crucial, and consistency happens when you're consistent. And consistency, why people are not consistent? Because we don't want to get out of our comfort zones. Getting up early in the morning is getting out of your bed, which is akin to a metaphor that you have to get out of the cozy bed and comfortable zones. But you have to get out. Then only you will find that there is some amount of lessons. Then only you'd be consistent, and then only you'd be successful. And then when you are successful, people perceive it as a rainbow. But then go back to the same thing, that rainbow doesn't know that, 7 colors. Rainbow is accepting that मेरे को 7 colors तो लगाना ही है, तभी मैं rainbow बन पाऊंगा. But we humans become very subjective by saying, no, I just want one color in my life, but I want my life to be like rainbow. It can't be.
I think that was the most beautiful answer we received here. अब ऑलमोस्ट हम इस प्रोग्राम के एंड पे आ चुके हैं, और जाते जाते आई जस्ट वांट टू आस्क कि यू रीड लॉट, विजिटेड योर होम, आपका घर एक लाइब्रेरी के जैसा ही है. सो क्या आप हमारे ऑडियंस को बुक्स रिकमेंड करेंगे कि क्या बुक्स उन्हें अपने पर्सनालिटी को शेप अप करने के लिए, अपने कम्युनिकेशन स्किल्स को होन करने के लिए, और एक स्टोरी टेलिंग एबिलिटीज डेवलप करने के लिए, व्हाट बुक्स दे मस्ट रीड?
Honestly, I mean, you visited my house, you have seen the home. I think so. Credit goes to Aditi to make that beautiful home. Books are there, and honestly, I read many books, but I'm not a like a book का कीड़ा नहीं हूं मैं कि शुरू से end तक पढ़ूंगा. I keep on reading few pages and then pick up another book, then pick up another book. I read listen to some podcast. To answer your question, few of the books which have stuck to me, and genuinely they have impacted me. One is Atomic Habits, which I think is a beautiful book. It actually teaches you about many things. Again, the power of consistency, which I gave you as a metaphor, was drawn from this book. The consistency only comes when you are habitual of doing few things. And Atomic Habits are small things, very, very small things, which give you 1% improvement. So that's one book which I would definitely recommend everybody should read. It's a beautiful book. Apart from that, I used to read when I was a young kid a lot of mystery books. There was Famous Five, which was from Enid Blyton. Then there was Hardy Boys, which build the spirit of adventure in young kids. And then, of course, Agatha Christie, which has been one of my favorite author when it comes to that's a fiction, more in terms of mystery novels and all that stuff. Apart from that, some of the books which I genuinely believe could contribute a lot of value, and I've always benefited from them, is something which is a biography of Steve Jobs, which I think so. Again, I watch documentaries because I love to understand what this person is going through. So biography of Steve Jobs is really very good book. One must read that. It tells you the consistency, the focus, the discipline, and the passion, all those aspects. So these are some of the books which I would recommend, are good books to read in. But otherwise, apart from reading, I would also say is that write. Don't just read, write. Because if you read and just, it's like camphor, it will evaporate. So you have to protect that camphor by not burning it and, writing down what you have learned. That's very important.
Great. Some podcast you would like to name?
There is one podcast which is, um, I'm forgetting the name. I think so. Good to Great. That's the name of the podcast, which actually profiles a lot of Indian businessmen and Indian artists. I think so. That's a very good podcast, which I believe is good. Apart from that, there is one Stanford Seed podcast, which is Stanford Transformation, which is also very good from Stanford University. There are some real good podcasts from INSEAD, which is my institute. I'm an alum of INSEAD. There are some beautiful podcasts, including Blue Ocean Strategy, which tells you that how we tend to get into red oceans, which is competing with others, whereas we should be looking at blue oceans, which is about exploring the vast universe which is available to us. So those podcasts definitely one must listen.
ग्रेट। तो मुझे लगता है कि ये बातचीत एक सुंदर मोड़ पर आ गई है, और एक ऐसे मोड़ पर जहां पर इसे सुनने के लिए हम एक बड़े ऑडियंस की तरफ इसे हम आगे भेजेंगे। आपको थैंक्स, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। ये एक छोटा सा प्रयास था शदल रेडियो का, कि जो अच्छा काम, जो कंसिस्टेंट एफर्ट आशीष लिमये अपने जॉब, करियर और प्रोफेशनल पर्सनल एस्पेक्ट से कंट्रीब्यूट करते आए हैं, उसको हाईलाइट करना, उसको सामने लेके आना। बिकॉज हम सभी अपने अपने स्फेयर ऑफ लाइफ में कई बार एक ऐसे मोड़ पर आ जाते हैं जब हमें समझ नहीं आता होता कि वट एवर आई एम डूइंग, एम आई डूइंग इट राइट और नॉट, मैं जिस दिशा में बढ़ रहा हूँ या बढ़ रही हूँ वो सही है या नहीं। तो लाइफ स्टोरीज जब हमको सामने मिलती हैं, दिखाई देती हैं, और जो चैलेंजेस की किस तरीके से, कैसे हम अपने आप को पुश कर सकते हैं और कैसे हम ऊपर उठ सकते हैं अपने छोटे छोटे प्रयासों से और राइट डायरेक्शन से, कंसिस्टेंसी से। तो ये स्टोरीज बहुत मोटिवेट करती हैं, एक डायरेक्शन देती हैं। थैंक यू सो मच आशीष। और मुझे पूरी
Pleasure.
उम्मीद है कि जब आपकी बुक आएगी तो उसके जो एक पुस्तक विमोचन, एक फॉर्मल पुस्तक विमोचन जिसको हम कहते हैं, बुक लॉन्च, तो उसमें हम सभी को यहाँ पे इनवाइट मिलेगा और हम सभी एक साथ जाएंगे आपको सेलिब्रेट करने के लिए।
Thanks a
और
lot.
ये वो हमारे लिए, हम सब के लिए एक बहुत ही खास दिन होगा। एंड वी आर डेफिनेटली वेरी वेरी प्राउड ऑफ यू, एंड वी ड्रॉ अ लॉट ऑफ इंस्पिरेशन। जस्ट बिफोर आई क्लोज दिस सेशन, प्लीज से 2 words फॉर माय चैनल शद्दल रेडियो।
आप बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं। आई थिंक सो, जो मैंने कहा था, कंटेंट का पावर आप रियलाइज कर रहे हैं। आप उस कंटेंट के माध्यम से अच्छी कम्युनिटी बिल्ड कर रहे हैं, and which will hopefully drive the right change. So I wish Shaddal Radio best. I keep on observing a lot of your initiatives in society also. I think so. I must congratulate you on being true to what you are and finding the courage to do what you want to do. So Shaddal Radio is a great initiative, and I wish more power to Shaddal Radio. And I do believe that constantly अगर आप ये अच्छा कंटेंट क्रिएट करते रहेंगे और आप इस पे कंसिस्टेंट रहेंगे, so you would be able to not just drive some commerce for this radio, but also a change in the society, which I believe is far, far more important than any commerce success which you may get.
Thank
So
you
go
so
ahead.
much. Thank you so much. Really heartfelt words for my channel. And I thanks again, everybody. And here we are closing this session.
Thank
So,
you. Thanks a
yeah,
lot. Yeah.
all the
Bye.
best to you.
Thank you. Bye.